3 rich teenagers dumped coffee on me, put gum in my hair, and called me a fat loser at the cafe. Then an hour later, I walked onto stage as their new principal. The bratty teenagers harassing me at a cafe had no idea I was their new principal. I stopped at the coffee shop next to my new high school before my first day as principal, picking up the box of donuts I'd ordered for the kids in detention. I'd read their files last night and figured starting with kindness might work better than punishment, since it seemed like this school had a real problem with mistreating the poorer students that I was hoping to correct, and fast. I'd dressed down in jeans and a cardigan since I'd changed into my suit at school, and I was pulling up student files on my phone, particularly the ones marked at risk that previous principals had given up on. But then 3 kids in Jefferson uniforms walked in and decided I'd be their morning entertainment. It was clear right away that these weren't the poor kids I was reading about. The first one had a backpack that spelled out Yvonne in rhinestones and a phone that cost more than my rent. She looked at me pondering the menu board and loudly whispered to her friends, "God, old people are so slow." She's been staring at it for like 5 minutes. She turned to the boy next to her. "Liam, look at her squinting. She probably can't see it without her bifocals." I ignored them and ordered a simple latte, then asked for my box of donuts, figuring I'd just get everything and leave without any confrontation. This cafe wasn't my school. I wasn't trying to be the boss here, but when Yvonne saw the donut box, she burst out laughing. Of course she's getting a dozen donuts. Look at her, she's definitely eating those all herself. She came up right behind me and added, "That's probably just breakfast. Let me guess, you also drive a minivan because you can't fit in a normal car." The third kid, wearing a varsity jacket with Wyatt on it, pointed at my cardigan and said, "She shops at the same store as my grandma, in the plus-size section." While we waited for drinks, they sat at the table next to mine even though the whole cafe was empty. I tried to focus on the student files, making notes about intervention strategies, but Yvonne started taking pictures of me with her phone. "This is perfect for my Instagram story about fashion disasters," she said, zooming in on my shoes. When my drink came, Wyatt accidentally knocked into me, making me spill coffee on my cardigan and the student files I'd printed. "Oops, sorry lady," he said with fake concern, "but honestly that stain is an improvement." While I was dabbing at the coffee, Yvonne opened my purse and started going through it. "Let's see what boring people carry," she said, pulling out my reading glasses and putting them on mockingly. "These are like +10 magnification. You're basically blind." I calmly took my glasses back, but they were just getting started. Liam grabbed my phone when it buzzed and looked at the lock screen. "Who's texting you?" "Your book club." He held it up to show it was from someone named Margaret. "Margaret? Of course your friends have old lady names." When I reached for my phone, he tossed it to Wyatt, who pretended to fumble and dropped it on the concrete floor. "Whoops, how clumsy of you," he said to me as I heard the screen crack. While I was picking up my phone, Yvonne stuck her gum in my hair, pressing it deep into the strands at the back of my head. "There, now your hairstyle matches your personality. Stuck in the past," she said while her friends filmed it. They were laughing so hard other customers were staring. Wyatt tripped while carrying his iced coffee, dumping the entire thing down my back. The freezing liquid soaked through everything while he said, "Oh no, at least now you have an excuse to burn that whole outfit." Yvonne pulled out scissors from her backpack and said, "Actually, let me help." And before I could react, she'd cut a huge hole in my cardigan sleeve, much more fashionable with ventilation. When I stood up to leave, Liam blocked my path and announced to the whole cafe that I was probably going to report them because Karens like her always want to speak to the manager. He threw $1 on the ground. "Here's a tip for the entertainment. Buy yourself something nice, like a personality." Yvonne started chanting, car N," and soon they had other kids joining in. As I finally made it to the door, Yvonne followed me out and shoved me hard from behind, making me stumble into the parking lot. "Run along to your boring job," she called out. "I bet you're a secretary or something equally worthless. My dad owns half this town and could buy and sell people like you." She spit at my feet before going back inside to her friends, all of them watching through the window and laughing as I walked toward the school. An hour later, I stood backstage at the assembly in my suit, the gum cut out of my hair leaving an obvious chunk missing, coffee stains still visible on my shirt underneath. The vice principal was at the microphone saying, "Please welcome your new principal, Ms. Turner," and I walked onto the stage. I scanned the crowd and found them immediately in the third row. They were frozen with their mouths hanging open like they'd just seen a ghost. I let the silence stretch for 10 more seconds, watching Yvonne's face drain of all color while Liam started sweating through his shirt. The entire gymnasium stayed dead quiet, hundreds of students holding their breath. I touched the spot where the chunk of hair was missing. As you can see, I've already met some of our students this morning. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. I clicked to the next slide showing our new bullying rules in bold letters. "Starting today, these rules apply to everyone. Doesn't matter who your parents are." The whispering started immediately. Everyone knew exactly what I meant. I looked straight at Yvonne, who was clutching her rhinestone backpack like it might somehow protect her. "I need 3 volunteers for something," I announced, my voice carrying across the gym. I pointed directly at the third row. "Yvonne, Liam, and Wyatt, come on up." They didn't move, not an inch. The vice principal had to walk down the bleachers and basically drag them to the stage. Wyatt's Letterman jacket looked like it weighed 100 pounds on his shoulders. Once they stood beside me on stage, I pulled up the coffee shop security footage on the massive projection screen. "Let's talk about what happened this morning." The entire gymnasium gasped as they watched Yvonne stick gum in my hair, Wyatt dump coffee down my back, and those scissors come out to cut my cardigan. Kids everywhere started grabbing their phones. "Phones away," I said firmly. "This isn't about embarrassing anyone. It's about fixing problems." I turned to face my 3 morning friends. "You 3 get to be the first participants in our new program. Detention starts at 3 o'clock. You'll be eating donuts with the kids I actually bought them for." After the assembly ended, my phone started blowing up immediately. Tariq Ashley wanted to meet right now about his daughter. His text messages got increasingly aggressive with each one I didn't answer. I spent the next hour going through files on at-risk kids instead. Every single file showed the same pattern. Rich kids' problems mysteriously disappeared while poor kids got punished for the smallest infractions. Margaret knocked on my door and walked in carrying this massive folder. "Been saving this for 3 years," she said, setting it on my desk. "Was waiting for someone who'd actually care." I opened it to find changed grades, hidden disciplinary reports, and scholarship money that had been redirected to wealthy families. Yvonne's name appeared on nearly every page. At lunch, I visited the detention room where the regular kids were eating their sandwiches. I handed out the donuts that had survived this morning's assault and sat down to listen to their stories. Jalen Hayes looked me in the eye and told me about Yvonne making her life hell every single day. The other kids nodded along. They all knew exactly what she meant. 3 o'clock arrived, and Yvonne Jalen, Liam, and Wyatt showed up at detention looking absolutely terrified. The regular detention kids couldn't believe what they were seeing. The untouchables actually facing consequences. I had them all clean cafeteria tables together. Yvonne whined about ruining her manicure until she saw the look on my face and went silent. Wyatt actually just did the work without complaining. He kept checking his phone though, probably worried about what his teammates were saying. Liam looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor entirely. After detention ended, Tariq Ashley was waiting in my office with Mario Vinogradov from the school board. They were both furious about me humiliating students in front of the whole school. I calmly showed them the coffee shop video and then opened Margaret's folder. Mario's face changed real quick when he saw the documentation about scholarship fraud. That night, Yvonne started posting on Instagram with hashtag Principal Power Trip. She'd edited the videos to make herself look like the victim, cutting out all the parts where she'd attacked me. But then Jalen and other kids started posting their own stories with number Jefferson Truth. Within hours, everyone was talking about what really went on at our school. The next morning, I started a free breakfast program for everyone. The cafeteria was packed with kids who usually didn't eat until lunch, if they ate at all. Carrie Snow cornered me in the hallway between classes. "You're messing up everything," she hissed. "We need those rich families' money to keep this school running." At lunch, I noticed Liam sitting completely alone at a table. His usual friends wouldn't even look in his direction anymore. Aurora McLean showed up with a news camera crew in tow. She wanted to talk about the viral video that was spreading across social media. I told her no, but she was already interviewing kids outside the building. I wonder what kind of school lets these kids carry scissors in their backpacks. The way Yvonne just happened to have them ready to cut someone's clothes makes me curious about what else she's done before. That afternoon's detention was bigger. I'd caught 6 more kids bullying others. The rich kids looked genuinely shocked that rules actually applied to them now. After detention ended, Wyatt lingered behind and started to tell me something about his dad and pressure to maintain the family image, but he stopped mid-sentence and walked away. Day 3 brought an emergency board meeting. The room was packed to capacity. Tariq Ashley stood up demanding I be fired immediately while other parents defended my actions. Margaret stood up from her seat and showed the board her 3 years of documented proof. The room went completely silent as they absorbed what they were seeing. Mario announced that they would be conducting a full audit of the school's financial and disciplinary records. Several board members looked like they might throw up right there. That night, someone spray-painted "snitch" across my car in bright red letters. The security footage showed someone in a hoodie, but you couldn't make out who it was. The next morning, Liam was waiting outside my office when I arrived. He looked exhausted. That's when he told me his family was actually broke. They'd been pretending to have money just so he could fit in with the wealthy kids. I got him enrolled in the free lunch program without anyone else knowing. He started crying and told me about other kids doing the exact same thing, living lies to avoid being targets. The audit results came back showing that scholarship money meant for poor kids had been systematically redirected to wealthy families who made donations. Tariq Ashley's name appeared on nearly every transaction. At the next assembly, I announced that all school financial matters would be completely public from now on. You could feel the wealthy parents panicking from their seats in the back. Yvonne showed up to detention wearing regular jeans and a plain t-shirt. No designer labels, no rhinestones, nothing flashy at all. She and Jalen ended up working at adjacent tables. They didn't speak to each other, but something in the air had definitely shifted. The state education department announced they were launching a full investigation into Jefferson High. Mario Vinogradov resigned from the board that same day. A week later, Wyatt quit the football team. His dad stormed into my office screaming about family reputation and how I'd ruined his son's future. I offered Wyatt a chance to coach little kids' sports as community service instead. He said yes immediately, looking more relieved than I'd ever seen him. Aurora McLean's news story aired that evening with the title, "Revolution at Jefferson High." She'd interviewed dozens of kids outside the school, and watching it made my chest tight with something between pride and worry. "I finally feel safe here," one freshman told the camera, clutching her books. "Like the rules actually mean something now." Another kid wearing a worn jacket looked straight at the camera and said, "Ms. Turner sees us, the real us, not just our parents' bank accounts." The segment ran for 12 minutes, showing before and after footage of the school, interviews with students from both sides of the economic divide, and ended with Aurora standing in front of Jefferson's main entrance saying this was just the beginning of major changes. The next morning, health inspectors showed up at 3 of Tariq Ashley's restaurants. He stormed into my office around noon, his face purple with rage. "You did this!" He slammed his hands on my desk. "Don't pretend this is coincidence." I kept my voice level. "The health department says it's routine inspections. Nothing to do with me or the school." He leaned in close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne. "You've made a powerful enemy, Turner. This isn't over." After he left, I walked through the hallways during passing period and heard something that stopped me cold. Yvonne was standing by her locker, facing Jalen Hayes. "I'm sorry," Yvonne said, her voice barely audible over the hallway noise. "For everything. The names, the shoving, the—" "Stop!" Jalen cut her off. She looked Yvonne up and down, taking in the plain clothes, the lack of makeup, the way Yvonne couldn't quite meet her eyes. Then Jalen just nodded once and walked away. 3 weeks had passed since that first assembly, and the breakfast program had grown beyond what I'd imagined. We were serving dinner now too, and the cafeteria stayed open until 7 every night. Local businesses started donating when they found out how many kids had been going hungry. The owner of the hardware store dropped off a check and told me, "Had no idea it was this bad. My employees' kids go here." Liam had started tutoring younger kids in math after school. His old friends would walk by the library windows and laugh, making obscene gestures, but he'd just pull the blinds closed and keep explaining fractions to the 6th graders. "They're idiots," he told me one afternoon when I stopped by. I was an idiot too. Still am probably, but at least I'm trying not to be. A month after the investigation started, half the school board had been replaced. The new members weren't all from wealthy families. We had a nurse, a mechanic, and a social worker now. They passed new financial oversight rules that meant money couldn't buy special treatment anymore. The morning after the board changes, Tariq Ashley pulled Yvonne out of Jefferson. She left a note on my desk that I found after lunch. I learned more than I wanted to. That was it. No signature, but I recognized her handwriting from all the discipline reports I'd reviewed. Detention had transformed into something unexpected. Instead of silent punishment, it became this space where kids from different groups actually worked through their problems. We had peer mediation circles, group projects, and yes, donuts every Friday. "This is weird," one kid said during a Friday session. "Like good weird, but weird." 2 months in, I got the report I'd been waiting for. Grades for at-risk students had gone up for for the first time in years. Not dramatically, but enough to show we were moving in the right direction. Carrie Snow knocked on my door that afternoon. The same teacher who'd cornered me about needing rich families' money now stood there with a sheepish expression. I was wrong, she said simply. The kids in my remedial classes are actually participating now. Could you help me understand what you're doing? We spent an hour talking about engagement strategies and meeting students where they were instead of where we thought they should be. Margaret got promoted to vice principal after the previous one submitted his early retirement papers. Nobody was surprised. He'd been part of the old system for too long. Finally, Margaret said, moving into her new office. 23 years of ideas I can actually implement now. She immediately started reviewing every policy that had been used to discriminate against poor students, marking them for revision or elimination. The coffee shop incident had become legendary at school. Kids started saying, pulling a Turner, whenever someone stood up to bullies without throwing a punch. Did you see Jake pull a Turner on those seniors? I overheard in the hallway. Just stood there documenting everything on his phone while they tried to steal that kid's lunch money. 6 months after that first day, I found myself back at the same coffee shop. The teenage barista recognized me immediately. Her green hair was hard to forget. Ms. Turner. She practically bounced behind the counter. My little brother actually likes school now. He used to fake sick like 3 times a week. She made my latte with extra care, drawing a little heart in the foam. On the house, she said, waving away my money. Wyatt's coaching program had 40 kids signed up. He'd started with just basic sports skills, but it had evolved into mentorship. I watched from my office window as he taught them not just how to throw a football, but how to lose gracefully and win with humility. It's the first time I felt useful, Wyatt told me after practice one day. His face flushed from running drills. Not just popular or talented, actually useful. His father hadn't spoken to him in 2 months, but Wyatt seemed lighter somehow, like he'd put down a weight he didn't know he'd been carrying. Liam's grades had shot up once he stopped spending all his energy on maintaining his fake rich kid persona. Turns out when you're not constantly stressed about fitting in, you can actually focus on learning. Got into the honors math class for next year, he told me, holding the placement letter like it was made of gold. My mom cried when she saw it. Good tears though. The spring semester brought something I never expected. A letter from the state education board. They wanted me to present at their annual conference about what we'd done at Jefferson. I almost said no, but Margaret convinced me it could help other schools dealing with the same problems. You have to share this, she said, waving the invitation. Think about all the kids at other schools going through what ours went through. The presentation was scheduled for May, which gave me 2 months to prepare. I decided to bring students with me. Let them tell their own stories instead of me speaking for them. Jaylin volunteered immediately. I want other kids to know it can get better, she said, already making notes about what she wanted to say. To my surprise, Liam asked to come too. I need to own what I did, he told me. Maybe hearing from someone who was part of the problem can help. The local paper ran a feature about Jefferson's transformation. They interviewed dozens of people, students, parents, teachers, even the owner of the coffee shop where everything started. She walked in here covered in coffee and gum, and I thought she was going to break down, the barista told the reporter. Instead, she bought her donuts and went to work. The coffee shop barista giving free lattes to the principal who got covered in gum there? That's some beautiful full circle karma, from sticky mess to foam hearts in just 6 months flat. That's when I knew things were going to change. Wyatt's mom called me one afternoon, crying. He's like a different person, she said through tears. He actually talks to us at dinner now, tells us about the kids he's coaching, their progress. We haven't seen him this happy since middle school. The coaching program had become so popular we had to add evening sessions. Wyatt recruited other athletes who'd quit their teams to help out. They weren't the stars anymore, but they seemed more genuine, more real. One Thursday, I walked past the detention room and heard laughter. Real laughter, not the mean kind. Inside, kids from every social group were working on a mural together for the cafeteria wall. They'd decided the theme themselves. Jefferson United. Ms. Turner, check this out, one kid called, pointing to a section showing students of all backgrounds sharing a table. We're putting everyone in it, even the kids who left. I noticed a small figure in the corner with a rhinestone backpack, walking away from the school. They'd included Yvonne in their story of change. The state conference was held in the Capitol, in this massive convention center. Walking in with Jaylin and Liam, I felt more nervous than that first day at Jefferson. We had an hour-long slot in the main auditorium. The place was packed. Superintendents, principals, state officials, all waiting to hear about the Jefferson miracle as they'd started calling it. I started with the coffee shop video. No introduction, no context, just the raw footage of 3 kids destroying their future principal's morning. The auditorium went dead silent. This was my first interaction with Jefferson students, I said when the video ended. 6 hours later, I was their principal. Jaylin took the microphone next. She didn't sugarcoat anything, told them about years of being invisible, of having her lunch money stolen while teachers looked away, of almost dropping out before I arrived. The bullies didn't just take our money, she said, her voice steady. They took our belief that we mattered. Ms. Turner gave that back. Liam's turn was harder to watch. He talked about the pressure to fit in, the lies he told, the kids he hurt trying to stay in the popular group. I threw away real friendships for fake ones, he admitted. I bullied kids who were going through the same struggles I was. Ms. Turner didn't just punish us, she made us see ourselves. The Q&A session ran over by an hour. Superintendent after superintendent wanted to know how to replicate what we'd done. I kept telling them the same thing. You have to be willing to lose the big donors. You have to choose the kids who need you over the ones who fund you. After the conference, emails started flooding in from schools across the state. They wanted consultation, advice, copies of our new policies. Margaret and I spent entire weekends putting together resource packets. 3 schools in neighboring districts implemented our breakfast and dinner programs within a month. 2 more copied our transparent financial policies. The ripple effect was starting. Back at Jefferson, something beautiful was happening. The kids who'd been enemies were becoming something else. Not friends exactly, but not enemies either. They'd nod in the halls, share tables when the cafeteria was crowded, work together on projects without complaint. One morning in late May, I found a package on my desk with no return address. Inside was a brand new cardigan, designer label, with a note to replace the one I ruined. I'm sorry. Why? I never wore it, but I kept it in my office as a reminder that even the kids who seem unreachable are still just kids. The last day of school, Wyatt stopped by my office. His dad still wasn't talking to him, but he'd gotten into college on an academic scholarship, not athletic. I wrote about the coaching program in my essay, he said, showing me his acceptance letter. About learning that strength isn't about power over others, but lifting them up. Liam had been accepted to the state university's engineering program. Turned Turns out I'm actually good at math when I'm not pretending to be stupid to fit in, he said with a grin that looked nothing like his old cocky smirk. The detention room had been transformed over the year. The mural was finished, the walls covered with photos of kids working together, quotes about second chances, and yes, a photo from that first detention with donuts. On the very last afternoon, after the buses had left and the building was quiet, Margaret and I sat in my office looking at the statistics. Bullying reports down 78%. Academic performance up across all economic levels. 0 kids expelled for fighting in the past 4 months. You did it, Margaret said, but I shook my head. We all did it. The kids most of all. That evening I stopped at the coffee shop one more time. The same barista was there, the one with green hair who'd given me free coffee months ago. Usual? She asked, already starting my latte. While I waited, 3 kids in Jefferson uniforms came in. I tensed for a second. Old habits die hard, but they just ordered their drinks and sat down to study together. One of them was wearing designer clothes, another had patches on their backpack, the third somewhere in between. They shared their notes like it was the most natural thing in the world. Here you go, Ms. Turner, the barista said, handing me my drink. She'd drawn a little graduation cap in the foam. Congratulations on surviving year 1. Walking back to my car, I passed the spot where Yvonne had shoved me that first morning. The parking lot looked the same, but everything else had changed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we gave you every reason to. Your first detention class. I sat in my car for a minute, reading it again. Then I drove home, already thinking about year 2. There was still work to do, always would be, but we'd proven something important. That one moment of standing up, even covered in coffee with gum in your hair, could change everything. The summer break stretched ahead, but I'd be back. We all would. Because Jefferson High wasn't just a school anymore. It was proof that the system could change. One detention, one donut, one difficult conversation at a time. Thanks for letting me explore all these fascinating questions with you. Really hope you enjoyed wondering right alongside me. See you next time. Like the video, it helps more than you think.